So hello everyone, welcome to this webinar about what research in education for sustainable development suggests. I'm gonna start sharing my presentation now, and then I'll introduce myself. And this is something that I've been reading about lately, since I moved to Finland to study a master's degree program in pedagogy and teaching for sustainability. So my name is Karla Soto, and I've been collaborating with Edugems since almost for a year already. I think we started in October last year. That's how I met Marianne and the rest of the team. And as you can guess, I got really interested in this topic, education for sustainable development. And so when I found this program in the University of Eastern Finland, I applied for it immediately. And now I'm here. Today, I was telling Marianne that today is the first day of snow, apparently, this autumn. And I would like to share you some pictures later, like how it looks here in Joensuu. Yeah, this is one picture from the university. Like I said, I moved here recently, and that was in still summer, maybe. Yeah. So it looks really green over here. And this is in autumn, where you see how the colors changes, and it's really, really beautiful. The idea is to train teachers around the world to integrate education for sustainable development into their teaching, so that we have no excuses to say maybe, no, I'm not a science teacher, I don't know how to teach about education for sustainable development, but we can all do this. And this the Edugems curriculum has been designed for Marianne. You know her, and she's also gonna maybe present something at the end and help me with some of your questions maybe, and also more comments. And yeah, for those of you who have taken the courses with Edugems, you know this image, right? You have studied the planetary boundaries, and I think this is a good framework for us human beings to have an idea the state of the planet at the moment, and how much we have changed things, like for instance biodiversity loss, how far from safe we have moved, and this is where we are at the moment, right? And now I'm gonna start talking a bit about research that it's focused on. The first paper is focused on climate change education, and as you can see, in climate change we are also far from the safe space where we can operate. So it's below, it's above the red area, right? Can you all see that? Yeah, right. And we also, I would like to say this, that's coming from UNESCO, that we are now at a point in education when we want to form students to make informed decisions, right? And especially to take action to change our society and care for the planet. I think this is what we dream to do as teachers. And this is something that I really would like to contribute to also. That's why I decided to do this master's, because I think this is the future of education, or not the future, it should be what we are doing now, right? I don't know how you feel about this, or if you agree with this statement. What does this make you feel as teachers or principals of a school? Maybe how do you see this in your reality, in your context, in your countries? I don't know if someone has any questions or would like to share something at this point. Feel free to just do it. Otherwise, I'll continue. So, if no comments yet, the first paper that I would like to present is this identifying effective climate change education strategies. It's a review of like other research that has been presented. So that's why I think it could be interesting to take a look at this. I know in general, like teachers, we don't have much time to read too much information. So that's why I would like to summarize this kind of like summary of this info related to climate change education. Understanding that this is what we want as teachers, to teach about these topics because we want to promote like change in society and our students to take action. So climate change, teaching about climate change can be challenging. I think we know that, right? For different reasons, like the complex of climate change itself, like how difficult it is to understand this and how difficult it is to communicate this. That also the fact that maybe there's no agreement yet about what strategies we should be using and what strategies are the most effective. And what should we teach? Is it just about the scientific knowledge, or we also want the kids or our students to act? And I was reading one of the comments the other day of the participants in the 6-week challenge, and they are actually concerned about the parents' response to this topic. I think maybe also Marianne could somehow mention a bit about like how has been the parents' response, for instance, in her experience, or Natalia, Pormina, I don't know, because this is something that I never thought about up to like this paper and like reading the comments. But it is an issue, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was also worried last weeks about the parents' response a bit, because we can see that the information and all the facts that come from science might be contradictory to the world view of families, and that's like understandable that they live differently than kind of like we are thinking that we should change the daily habits, and that feels uncomfortable for the families perhaps, and maybe that's a message that some of them are kind of not ready to hear. So it's also like a big responsibility on students, that we would expect them to be change agents, but at the same time, like changing the system, it's not the responsibility of kids. It's the responsibility of adults. So somehow like balancing these two things, that it's adults' responsibility, but also like the students can and should, and we should encourage them to make changes, but at the same time telling them that really that don't be too pressed and don't feel too bad about it, because it's like adults' responsibility to do it. So however we approach, I still think that in most cases, in most people, it takes time to change the world view. Even though it doesn't really, that in some people it happens so that you hear a few facts, and then you think that, oh my gosh, I need to change my life. But like in most people, like 99% of people will need time, and they need to figure it out themselves, and perhaps they need many different kinds of small push from school and then some discussion with family or something, if you get my point, that it's really not easy to see what kind of climate change education is effective and how to measure it, because it takes time, and perhaps when they are like 23 or something, then they find out that, oh, the science teacher was right.
So I had as well not a positive experience when the kids were given at home to extract natural colors from vegetables, and I'm a teacher of English. One of the parents asked, is it a real homework? They expected from English teacher doing grammar exercises, reading text at home, and never doing kinds of experiments. And really, it was for me difficult to explain to kids. So the kids are the messengers to their parents. And I was explaining to kids that teaching English doesn't mean to teach only grammar or, I don't know, vocabulary. Teaching sustainability includes all the subjects. So all the kids, all the citizens, all the people should be included in this kind of teaching. It was difficult for me sometimes to explain to parents the implementation of what I've been learning from EduGem community, from EduGems platform.
Yeah.
Right. And can you also see differences in motivation, how the students are motivated, that it might be variable in families, how the attitudes are, the importance of this kind of interdisciplinary topics or social scientific issues?
Thank you for your comments. I think the way they measured that a program was successful is because in this case they just measured that, okay, the knowledge about climate change in their students increased, because I guess that's the easiest way to measure that the programs were like successful, right? And they identified 2 strategies to increase or to enhance this program. And the first one, and I know like maybe this is something you have heard before and it's common to many programs, but I think we still need to say this, right? And so the first strategy was that, okay, to focusing on making climate change information relevant and meaningful to the students, right? And how did they do this? Like using their local context. And I think this is really key in terms of like teaching climate change, right? How to bring this global threat that it's climate change to your area. How to connect what's happening in other regions or in other countries, like other countries maybe are emitting more CO2 than your country, but then you still need to connect this, what's happening in your country, in your city, or what are the climate change impacts in your area, right? And a second strategy was, and this is also again like common to many programs, that the activities or interventions were designed to engage the students. And to do that, they use mostly student-centered methods, like inquiry-based, experiential, and they mention a lot of activities like debates and discussions. I think this has also been like pointed out as an effective strategy to teach these topics, like this very complex topics like climate change, and then you can use it also for like other themes related to education for sustainable development. Hands-on activities, field trips, and I don't know, do you have any experience with this besides like, oh, how has been your experience with implementing, for instance, the lessons from Edugems, like, do you think that this has promoted some discussions in your students? Have you got to this point or not? Like, do you think it's easy, or you think it's maybe like in your subject? How do you feel about like hearing this? Like, okay, personally relevant and engaging for your student. How does that sound to you? I would love to hear.
Do you want to say something, Natalia? Or I just it just came into my mind how I warned them that the not very nice insects will come to Lapland as the global warming is heating the ecosystem, and we get less very like cold weathers. Then all the itches and like some mosquitoes that spread diseases, or some insects that will kill some trees and so on, will come to Lapland. So that was maybe effective, and the students were like, oh, we don't want them here.
How about you, Natalia?
Okay, so the activities that we have been, let's say, applied, or we have been done together with our kids, they really have a great impact. Firstly, on my school, because these kind of activities from the platform were the first in my school, and my colleagues asked me, "Oh, what are you doing? What kind of activities are you practicing?" And of course, I explained to them that I'm a member of this platform. Kids learned a lot, and by the way, when we started this year, the new year of learning, the new year of school, they asked me, will we continue to implement the activities concerning sustainability? And I say yes. We have practiced 2 activities from module 4. We are still practicing activities. It is because of the time. I didn't have time, unfortunately, so I had some problems. Really with great impact in my community and in my school.
That's so nice to hear. And okay, also these papers, they point out like, or they're a bit more specific about like the kinds of activities. So maybe this can also help you in the future when you're designing your own like study units, right? So another strategies that were really successful, like I mentioned before, the discussions, but in this case, deliberative discussions, especially among the students. Like this showed like that the students were like able to think deeply about concepts and mostly compare like and understand different opinions. Like this is the way that they mentioned this, how this strategy worked, and also to reflect on what they know and how they learn. So it's kind of like metacognitive learning, right? Another strategy they mention is the interaction with scientists and the possibility to experience the scientific process from themselves. I know that there are like programs like this, and I've seen it in my experience, like in Chile, but this is beyond the classroom, like after like science clubs or something like that, where the kids have the chance to kind of like play being a scientist, but apparently like using this while teaching or like visiting scientists that do research in climate change can be very beneficial for the students. Also, the idea of like using data and programs and resources that are available online, and you can connect with other students collecting data in another part of the world. That could be a nice experience for them. Besides, like, and increasing the interest in science subjects. More strategies that they mention, and this can be also very challenging, is how to address misconceptions about climate change. And it has been reported that not only students have misconceptions about climate change, but also teachers. So I guess this might take some time, because first you need to identify misconceptions and find a way how to address it, right? But in general, their strategy is simplify the info as much as possible, and try to, once you detect misconceptions, address them directly, maybe using experiments. Yeah, that worked in the cases that they are analyzed. And also designing and implementing school projects. So maybe here we go back to the idea that we connect what's happening globally with our specific context, right? There was one project that worked really well, and they got really nice results. While studying energy, for instance, high school students collect and monitor energy consumption in their own classroom and in their school, and this actually allows them to develop a project how to lower energy consumption in their school. And apparently they lowered their consumption like in 30% or something like that, which is really interesting. And here, like, you do both, like something that's relevant and you engage learners, right? Projects to communicate what you learn or what you know about climate change to others, could be family, but yeah, maybe then we have this problem, like, or not problem, but could potentially create this issue, like, how is my family reacting to this climate change situation, or how are they reacting to the environmental problems in our community? And another strategy was like meeting people that are actually affected by climate change, that also impact the learners, and was pointed out as a good strategy that helped the students learn more or be more interested in this topic. The two main strategies has to do with personal relevance and engaging students, according to this research. And like I said before, this is something that it's a characteristic of good education, right? Like, or this is something that we always aim for. And climate change education is not an exception. But now I have a questions, like, what about, how do you feel if, like, about educators also inspiring, like, our students? Are we empowering actions to mitigate climate change in our students? Are we seeing our students as change agents? I want to show you another research, another publication that also really, I feel like it's really inspiring, and that has possible many possible applications in education for sustainable development. This is about education in chemistry, being me a chemistry teacher, but I think it could easily apply to other subjects. And let's just remember that, like, transformative learning for people and the planet is necessary for our survival and that of future generations. The time to learn and act for our planet is now, according to Berlin's Declaration of Education for Sustainable Development that happened in May this year. And I think this makes a lot of sense for like the work that EduGem is doing. So the second paper is humanizing chemistry education, right? It to me, like just the title sounds amazing, and it's a theoretical research to a suggestion to combine like humanistics to the teaching of chemistry, right? And they explain why, and that's why I think this has many potential applications for education for sustainable development. Yeah, I think in science we should definitely, and like also like Marianne proposed in her thesis, and other authors too. I think that the key concept is this literate citizens, right? Scientifically literate citizens, that they use their understanding of science in their life, right? To make decisions, and mostly to make informed decisions, because that's what we are trying to prepare. Students that can make informed decisions and take action to protect the environment. And I think chemistry has a critical role in this. That's why chemistry education, it's so important. And that's why I like this model so much that I'm going to present you. So according to their research, there are, well, I show here 3 levels of chemistry teaching or chemistry knowledge, but I'm going to explain each of them, and then we do the connection with education for sustainable development. So the level 0 is what we usually call the pure science or pure chemistry, right? And it's the fundamental disciplinary knowledge, but usually it's abstract and it's mostly focused on symbols and formulas and calculations. And unfortunately, this is where most of teachers that I know, and also this is what I did in the past, like we focus on this because we know it's important, but this is just one level and it's the first level, right? Then level 1 would be what they call applied chemistry. And it's when you start connecting with applications and examples from your everyday life. But again, sometimes these examples and applications are isolated and they're mentioned like only once, and they could be used to increase the students' understanding and also to try to engage them. But since it happens like isolated, then it could be questionable how meaningful this is for their understanding of chemistry. And in level 2, we have what they call sociochemistry. And this includes the historical development of chemistry knowledge, or what the so-called socio-scientific issues, practices and products of chemistry in society, the benefits and costs, and the risk associated with the chemistry knowledge and practices. And this is where I think we can connect with sustainable development, right? When we start to understand that science happens in a context, in a specific historical context, and it has a purpose that's connected to this historical, social, cultural context, then we can start like using this knowledge to pose questions and discussions with our students. Moving on to level 3, that would be the critical reflexive chemistry. And this explains or shows the complex interaction between chemistry, technology, society, and our environment, because there is a connection, right? And this allows us to critically reflect about the role of chemistry in our society and how chemistry knowledge is produced and applied. So let me show you what's next and how this can be connected. Like I said, level 2, I think there are many examples of education for sustainable development that are connected to this second level. So in level 2, we emphasize science-based decision-making concerning chemical applications in modern society. And questions refer to societal and environmental issues. Examples that we can connect to ESD would be the life cycle analysis, that it's included in, correct me if I'm wrong, in the module 3, right? They do life cycle analysis.
Yes.
And we can discuss questions in a chemistry class, like how to evaluate the quality of the water we drink, what type of fat should we eat. These are just examples of like connecting science in this level to sociochemistry to problems that are related to environmental issues or social environmental issues.
It's very interesting, at least in the point of like science teaching, and I hope you can apply it to other fields of teaching as well. I learned in one conference that there are like more conservative and liberal teachers, I mean educators, also in the field of research, that some educators who do research, they kind of like take more conservative approach, and they think that all subjects should only teach the hard knowledge and core subject, and then other take more liberal and variable approach. So there are like two kinds of views on this, and also like the curriculum is supporting this holistic way of teaching, at least in Finland, and I guess that in many countries you have the wide value basis, the universal values behind and mentioned also there at the curriculum, isn't it?
So a few examples of questions or discussions we could have when we are in level 3. I'm gonna go directly there. It's not just about like using chemistry knowledge to make decisions and solve problems, but also about analyze critically how this knowledge, this chemistry knowledge is produced and in which context. For instance, questions like what social, economical, and political factors influence the generation of chemical knowledge? What criteria has been used to accept or reject a new chemical model? What factors influence the choice of fossil fuels over other sources of energy? Maybe the debate about the use of plastics could be included here. Fertilizers and how this have modified the cycle of like nitrogens, for instance. So I think those are like really big questions and discussions that, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, that we need to have with our students. And I'm really curious about like discussing these topics, even in like higher education. I think we're lacking these questions in science, for instance.
And then you hear what the students already can, and what the classroom, what kind of pre-knowledge they might have, or what did they learn, and somehow their values become visible, or we hear them directly that what do they think. And that's very interesting to have this kind of debates or role-playing things.
Yes, so well, yeah, obviously in this paper they apply it exclusively to chemistry, but this could be also happening in physics or biology, right? I don't know, like Natalia, you said you're an English teacher. Like,
yes, I am.
How does this sound to you? Like, could you think that it's also possible to make this connection, like to go beyond the level 1, right? Or the level 0 that is, or like you mentioned, like it's not only grammar that you expect to teach your students, right?
Yeah, it is possible. We have topics as climate change in the 7th grade, and in the 8th grade, we have topics such as climate change, natural disasters. So we have these topics, and we can have a discussion, we can have a debate with kids, with students. It is possible, and I did it, I practiced. It was great. They were amazed when we discussed about the use of plastics, and we discovered that plastics could be replaced with things made from wood, with things made from paper. They really enjoyed to discover these topics.
That's so nice. So
and as well, we learned new words in using these. So I gave them vocabulary, some words to use in the discussion. So we practiced English and we learned sustainability at the same time.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's really yeah, I think it's yeah, sometimes is it what's really stopping us from doing this? Is it the curriculum, or is it lack of willingness to really do this, to give these steps as teachers? Because if there's something that I want to say from this presentation, or that something that you should get from this presentation, is that research is telling us, yeah, we need to change the way we teach our subjects, right? And to move to a different way, which is very close to the way that it's promoted by EduGems, like a more holistic view of education and our subjects, and interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, and start talking about these issues. Because if this is not relevant these days, then what is? Like, we are in a stage where everybody's telling us, or this organizations like UNESCO are telling us, that we need to promote education for sustainable development, because the future of our species depends on it. And so yeah, this is and also research is supporting, like, yeah, this is possible, these are the strategies we can use. And yeah, so then why aren't we doing it, or why aren't some teachers not doing it? And yeah, I really admire Natalia because of what she said, that she's already doing this in an English class. So I think that's amazing. I always felt that as a science teacher, I have a huge responsibility, but we can all apply this in our subjects, I think.
It was not so easy because we are not native speakers. In Moldova, we practice English a little. So we practice English only in the lessons. We don't have programs in English on TVs, on radios. And of course, it was a bit difficult to discuss about sustainability, about fertilizers, about footprints in English lessons. But we tried, and I think we did it. We got a lot of experience. I know why it was difficult for me and for my colleagues and for my students to discuss, to implement sustainability in the lessons of English, because we have lack of education in sustainability in our country. We even in Romanian can't discuss about climate change, about fertilizers. We are still, let's say, so this term of sustainability is still new in my country. So we need, I don't know, 2 or 3 years to understand and to create actions in order to change something in my country. That's the problem.
And I think that's why what EduGem is doing so interesting, because then you are offering teachers like the possibility to learn about this and learn also how to apply it, or give you examples on how to apply it to your context in your school. But it also requires the willingness from the teacher to learn about something new and try this out.
Actually, it would be very good to get a platform where all teachers could share their projects regarding ESD, so we could see in whole world what teachers are doing, and then get the practical ideas, and also like support and the hope that okay, this is happening there and there and there. So that I hope we could build up one day better platform where everything could be shared more easily. But now it can be shared in teachers community, and we will be praising all the activities and learning from each others.
Yes, this is something that I think we teachers really need to reflect on in general, or like what are we teaching and why, like related to this relevance that we mentioned in the beginning, or yeah, in other words, what are we not teaching them? Like what I teach contributes to a better life for them, or to somehow improve their life or environment. And I think these are questions that are important for us as teachers, as educators in general. And because I find them not easy to answer maybe, and it requires some reflection and critical thinking from us too.
That's true, and at least in those places where curriculum allows you as teachers to have some room for planning contents and methods, so there we have a huge responsibility that what do we teach and how much and what less.
So that's all my presentation. Thank you very much. Gracias in Spanish and kiitos in Finnish.
Thank you.
I think that was highly interesting. Thank you, Karla, because it's so good to see that the research is supporting what we do and how we think that this ESD can be approached in whole world. So we founded EduGems for spreading ESD, and with our teaching experience. And Karla showed the biggest why, what inspired me for changing teaching and thinking what is necessary to teach. And if we look at the United Nations goals, the agreed goals for 2030 have the hierarchy. So I think it's important to give us the better ground for what we are doing, that we have the hierarchy of the needs, that the economy cannot function without a good society. And neither can the society exist if the biosphere is not doing well. So we need to have the biodiversity in marine life and land life, and then ecosystem services and fresh water. Those we need in order to run a society or economy. So just to keep in mind that the needs have a hierarchy, which we can refer on for the parents as well. And this renewing everything will give us a better life and more equal life for everyone. And that's the goal. And what is the point then that the individual and school should act like together? That might be quite lonely sometimes. So at least we learn the new habits together. We can test like new habits and ideas for our daily living and choices. How can it be done? So we are kind of like test labs or test centers and forerunners. And then by making new kinds of ways to live or reformulating the needs, that creates also thinking in other people that, okay, those did it, and maybe I should do it also. Maybe I should also consider switching to greener energy or sometimes vegetarian food or taking public transportation instead of own car or something. Like the daily actions still create the room for the change in bigger scale. And also we support each others, because if we are just lonely people somewhere and we don't share and somehow connect, then it might feel that there is no point if others are not doing enough. But then if we look that we can be the supporters of each others and share the feelings that are related to this work. Whenever parents or someone questions what we are doing, we can maybe perhaps answer that we are searching for the 21st century skills and inner motivation and skills to apply, which is really relevant in today's business. If you really want to work in any field, you need to have this kind of skills. And challenges are also mentioned in module 2, challenges and opportunities. But yeah, we discussed it already with Karla that the challenges are variable, but we can address them together. One detail is this ecological sustainability, which needs more emphasis, because at least in Finland, the social sustainability is functioning quite well, and the students get many kind of support. Like we have a psychologist in school and so on, so they get many kinds of like there are programs that they should have less discrimination or anything like related to bullying or something. But the ecological footprint and sustainability is still something that we can develop also in Finland more, how we connect everything to the natural resources and energy. So the change must be done in next decade. That's the best opportunity in order to be at least like you could call it like it's easy. It's not easy, but it's still easier than doing it in after 50 years or something, because now if we start now, we can get the pollution decreasing and somehow stop the worst consequences of climate change or biodiversity loss. So if we could, as a humankind, people together agree how how important it is to do the ecological rebuilding, this kind of Green New Deal that European Union is visioning. So it's not easy to do, but still, like, I briefly go through some points relating to that. So at the moment, we are measuring nation success with GDP, right? Gross domestic product and employment rate, and those are always going up. If you do any kind of business, GDP goes up and employment rate goes up, and then we are happy. But this is really not like measuring the worst effects, or this doesn't count on the pollution or what's happening besides. So in GDP, any kind of activity is good, but perhaps we really need goals on what kind of activities are preferred and allowed, because not everything can be allowed in today's world with these facts that we all know already. For instance, there could be measures on carbon budget, the resilience of the nation, the total natural resource use, or the payment capacity of the country, or the rate of transformation of work, how like old business as usual, old-fashioned work could transform into the greener works. So this kind of like measures should be used on the country basis or country level. And then this ecological rebuilding needs quite a lot of politics, and also like the willingness of people to change. There are always forerunners, and those like the big critical mass, which the mass of people will start doing something, and then there are those who don't want to change no matter what. But we still should get the big mass of people to agree on planned and simultaneously change to a greener direction. So it should be focusing on many fields of life, which will be very difficult, because we should change our agriculture system so that it's not so dependable on animal production, which wastes energy and land and natural resources. Transportation system should not be based on private cars in a big scale. And then construction is the field which uses perhaps the most energy with steel and concrete. So we really should focus also on the life cycles of construction and the how variably you can use, for example, building, so it would not be so long time empty or something. I don't know, it's perhaps the biggest issue here, the construction, how you really could make it more energy efficient. Maybe hydrogen can help in making steel carbon free. That requires a lot of energy though, so perhaps the carbon is the key. I mean, the hydrogen is the key for replacing climate pollution in steel production. And whole energy sector, how to make it renewable, and also decent consumption, which means that the richer, wealthier states and countries, people should really consume less, and we should lower the standard that we are consuming, and then the poorest people could still get a bit more consumption, better planned consumption. Less poverty should be also one focus, because only if the people have like good decent standard of living, they can then make climate actions. It's like impossible if you are in hunger or fear. This can be in practice more variable local food and energy systems, which are more on in people's hands and not in big companies driven. And then like extensive public transportation, of course, and circular economy. 4R is reduce, replace, reuse, recycle, this kind of things. So it really requires like the whole change of whole daily life into a better direction. Also, one goal that we should agree somehow and make our best is to diminish this polarization. There should be less polarization in order to maintain the safe and safe well-being of people, so that we would not get any wars and hate speech all the time. So this kind of goals that we as educators could be supporting and agreeing with the students could create us the better future, at least I think so.
We really need to start talking also about like then what is sustainable, right? And I think as teachers we have a great deal of power there, and like also show that like not only this don't do this, don't do that, turn that off, but also like, okay, let's start giving our learners also the possibility to start acting sustainably, right? I think that's many good ideas, like what you mentioned, like local food, public transportation, the 4Rs. It's yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah.
And still, like 80% of the energy is fossil in this whole world. So it's really like still mainly speaking, not actions. And there we can also be honest for the students that the adults are not doing the change very fast at the moment. But the big companies are waking up though. So I just read a book in Finnish about sustainable investing, and there I found out that it's like in investment sector that the change is rapid and happening really like in big scale, that the investors are taking money out of the fossils and carbon intensive companies. And so that was kind of like, I got quite a lot of hope from that point, because there where the money is, there is the change. So for example, like the biggest fund in whole world is the Norwegian oil fund, and they have set a goal to be carbon neutral, and like they are investing on green companies and so on. So even though it's not black and white what company is good or bad, it's still like the good direction that the companies are doing many times much more than the governments are doing. And also like people and students, even we can do a lot, even though the governments are quite, in democracy they are quite slow. You empower us, Natalia, and others like participants, you really empower us to continue this. Together we can only make the difference, and it's at least it's very meaningful to trying to do it, because when your kids will ask you in 10 years that what did you do when you knew what will happen, then you can still say that yeah, we did our best.
And you empower us to continue to implement, to continue to make a change in our communities. So I'm so grateful to you for this amount of knowledge I really didn't know before applying to Edugems community, before being a member of this platform. I knew nothing about consumption, about 4Rs, about circular economy. And I'm so glad, I'm so happy that I know, but maybe I don't know all the things, maybe I don't know all the facts from these aspects, but at least I know what to send, what to teach my kids concerning saving our lives, saving our health through sustainability. Thank you,
Natalia. Yeah, that's so true, because the scientific facts are really all telling us that we really have to act now together with the whole world. So what else can we do than try our best? Maybe that's good words to end. And I'm glad that you came to this webinar and